Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Club Junkie podcast. Another week down. Here we go. And it's a big week here at GolfWRX because, as most of you have seen, best driver list just came out, which is pretty fun. I mean, it's one of those things that we have to do every year because everybody does a best driver. I know it's super controversial in terms of how we do it compared to how other people do it, all that. But, before we get into it, let's let you know, hey, this episode brought to you by Titleist and Team Titleist. And honestly, we're excited to share with you guys exclusive opportunities from Titleist. But to be a part of them, you have to join Team Titleist. Team Titleist gives you access to opportunities like prototype testing, special events, limited edition gear from Titleist, and so much more. Sign up and join us on Team Titleist at www.titleist.com/Team Titleist. All one word, Team Titleist. And if you're ever one of those people who sees, or one of those people on social media who sees people testing new balls from Titleist in a white box with no markings and any of that stuff, that's part of Team Titleist. So you can get a bunch of gear, cool kind of TT logoed stuff. They've got lots of cool kind of things going on with that community. So go to Team Titleist, go to Titleist.com/Team Titleist. Check it out. It's pretty cool, and hang out with a bunch of golf crazy gear nuts like all of us here. So anyway, another week down. And I'm pretty excited. Like I said, it was a big week. Just launched our best driver of 2022, which we've been doing in different ways for years now. Because to be 100% honest with you, there is no best way to do a best driver, because the only best driver list that will ever come out would be when you go get fit and your fitter says, here's the best driver for you, and say here's number 2 or whatever. That's the only best driver list that will ever be accurate. But unfortunately, we can't send everybody to a fitter and get to every single golfer in the world fit. So it's just not possible. So we had to kind of come up with a different way of doing it. And I know some other publications, some other media companies have done stuff with robot testing, with player testing, with all sorts of stuff like that. Maybe a combination of both. And again, there's no great way. We did one in 2016, which I was happy to be a part of before I started working here, where we did gear trials. We called it that, and it was basically, I want to say it was like 20 people, something like that, who went and got fit at this local place called Miles of Golf, which is a big fitting place here in Michigan. Went and got fit, and we kind of divided people up into kind of swing speed categories, and had everybody kind of go through and hit every club. Like you had to hit every club. You see, hit Nike, hit Cobra, TaylorMade, whatever. You hit kind of everything. And it was cool. And it kind of went through and said, hey, here's what each person got fit into. And then it basically ranked everything, of what was kind of a gold medal, silver medal, bronze medal, whatever. And, there were things with that people didn't like. When we did that, people complained that there were different shafts for every club. Like they didn't just take one shaft and, use it with every single club. And, some things like that. And there were a lot of kind of variables. And I think in golf driver or any club testing, there's always a ton of variables. So there's no perfect way to do it. Like I said, you can go rent a robot and an Iron Byron and just, hit a bunch of drivers on that. You could put the same shaft in it, whatever. And that's fine. But that thing delivers the ball differently than a human does. And sure, you could, I guess, say, this one's the best, whatever, but, I mean, it's all going to come down to the type of machine, the club head speed that you've set the machine at, the ball you're using, the shaft that's in the club, the loft of the club. I mean, again, just crazy amount of variables in terms of, of what you can do for driver testing. So, a couple years ago, I think this is our 4th year that we've been doing it this way, but we decided to go a slightly different route. And our route now is, we basically send a big survey out to fitters all over the country, even some in Canada, and ask them to fill out what their kind of top drivers are for different club head speeds. And then we also do kind of a most forgiving or straightest driver as well. And we do this with kind of every club. Like we'll do something kind of similar with fairway woods, with hybrids, with irons. Irons are a little different category, and we don't break that stuff down by club head speed, but you get the idea. So, and the reason being was, sure, we could go, rent an Iron Byron and put some, heads on there and hit them and all that. And that's great. I mean, they'll get some data, and there'd be a group of people who would be really happy with that, and there'd be a group of people who weren't happy with that. And then, like I said, and everybody has their opinion of why it's good, why it's not, why it works, and why it doesn't. And everybody's kind of right. I mean, like I said, there's no real right way to do this, and there never will be unless you yourself go fit. So we came up with a few years ago to poll these fitters and to send these out, and these are some of the best fitters in the country. Like I said, they're all over from, the East Coast all the way to the West Coast, and, like I said, even some in Canada. And we go through and ask them kind of what they've been seeing in terms of their fittings and, what's been kind of working for players at, certain club head speeds. So club head speed, say, 95 and above, or I'm sorry, 90 or 106 and above, 95 to 105, and then 94 and below, and just say kind of what are the heads that you're fitting people into, in these categories. And then again, kind of the overall most forgiving. So just kind of asking, people what are they fitting people into, and then we go through and compile all the surveys and see what percentages each driver has, and we put them in this list, and we basically rank the top 5. And I know a lot of people kind of say like this is kind of a cheap way to do it. There's 5 winners in a sense, but again, there's no true winner. So even if we were to put up there and say, hey, this one got the absolute most votes in this category, it doesn't mean you're going to fit into that driver. That driver's going to fit you. It doesn't mean that driver's going to be the best for every person who reads this article. It just is kind of one of those things where if we kind of look at it as when you go under your fitter, hey, here's some education on what you may be hitting or what the fitter might be putting you into. And, as you read some of this stuff, maybe there's some reasons why that you can relate to with your swing or your game or whatever that you can say, well, yeah, that makes sense why, that this fitter's handing me a, Callaway Rogue ST Max or whatever. So, like I said, we kind of went through this thing and we've been doing it this way for a few years, and it's like I said, I think it's for us the best way to do it. Like I said, we could kind of do this own testing, whatever, but going to these fitters who literally all day, it's all they do. I mean, most of them are crazy busy because not only do we send them a survey, we also give them a call. We have a little chat with them, talk about some of the heads they picked on their survey, and just get some of their thoughts and some of their feedback on these fittings. And every single one of them, was extremely excited to help us, which we're very, very grateful for. That all these fitters kind of took the time out of their day to, one, fill out the survey, because it does take a little while. It's not as quick as you think. And then also to, take 15 minutes with myself or Tursky or somebody else here, just to talk about their choices and what they were seeing, and give us some little behind the scenes of what was going on with this stuff. And one, like I said, extremely grateful for them because they did take the time. But every one of them, I mean, the big thing was when you were calling like, hey, do you have 15 minutes? We can just kind of chat a little bit or whatever. Every one of them was just like, here are my times. I'm crazy busy. Can we get this done at this time, or can we sneak it in before I open or whatever? I mean, or after hours or whatnot. And it was just one of those things where, we kind of had to work around some people's schedules, and thankfully some people also had, some days off and stuff like that they were working around, and we were able to get all this stuff in. But, talking to every single person there, I mean, they even kind of know, and they're like, hey, this is kind of, when you're asking about heads, because, we would talk a little bit, and I'd say, hey, what about, whatever head, what's going on with, what are you seeing from players with, Stealth Max or Stealth Plus or whatever the head was. And every one of them would, they're fitters, and they're just like, this is generally what we're seeing. This is generally kind of the player it's for and things like that. And we know as well as they do that there's a lot of overlap that goes along with these heads as well. So just because something is picked in the 106 and up mile-an-hour club head speed range doesn't mean that there isn't a player who swings under that's fit into that head as well, that it works really well for. So, I mean, those things, we understand that. These aren't things that, are set in stone where, hey, if you're swinging above 106, these are the only drivers you can play. No, not at all. If anything, I mean, you look on tour and you prove that, stuff in the 95 to 105, you're going to see it on tour. I mean, even stuff in the 94 and below, like there's some of those heads, or, handful of those heads that are played or will be played on tour by some of the fastest swingers on earth. So, like I said, there's a lot of overlap, and this is kind of a general thing, but we think it's, like I said, the best way, because these fitters, every day, they're busy doing fittings from when they open to when they close, and they've got golfers on waiting lists to get in, to get fit for new clubs, drivers, irons, whatever. And, like I said, getting their opinions, their thoughts are way better than, a guy like me sitting next to an Iron Byron and just hitting balls. So that's why we've been doing it this way. And, sure, you can say, hey, there's either too many heads or whatever, too many winners, all that stuff. But, it's the way we've set it up, and I think that's the best way. Because like I said, again, even if you just picked one and said, hey, here's the gold medal, you won this round, there's going to be somebody out there who swings in that category and says, well, I didn't get fit into that head. I got fit into this head. And da-da-da. So we understand that. So that's why, when you look at the list, that's why there's 5 drivers in every category. So, we're not trying to make this a, one driver fits all, because that is not even close to what actually happens in the real world. But, this episode, just kind of want to go through some of these. I've hit almost all of them. There's maybe 1 or 2 that I haven't really hit yet. But other than that, I hit a lot of these heads, and just to be fun to kind of go through the list a little bit and talk. I don't think we need to hit every single one, but let's hit a few, and have a handful of them here that I can set up that I've been kind of messing with lately. But like I said, a fun list, and like I said, my job is fun because I get to sit there and talk to a handful of fitters and kind of get their quotes and talk to them, and it's pretty cool to hear what they're seeing from golfers at of all skill levels and things like that. So it was a good time, and it was a lot of work though. It was really busy, especially last week, busy trying to get everything kind of finished up and ready to go for Tuesday's launch. So this was launch Tuesday. If you if you haven't seen it on our social, you're just probably not following GolfWRX on social. But if you go to our front page, you'll see the Best Driver 2022, and you'll see the list. I mean, we list all the fitters that we work with on there well, and a lot of them, as you look on there, you'll probably recognize a bunch of them, or heck, it may have been fitted by 1 or 2 of them, or something like that. So it's like I said, a cool list. But as we start, we'll start where kind of everything starts, and I think it's kind of the GolfWRX group in a sense, and that is the best drivers for the swing speeds of like 106 and above. So this was, in terms of breaking it down to by swing speed, it was a little bit of a challenge of where's the cutoff. Where's that cutoff of really fast swing club head speeds as compared to like slightly more moderate but still quick. So, it was kind of a hard idea, but we, came up with 105 just because, from there on, there's a lot of players who'll kind of be in that 112 to 1. But, I mean, we'll have some people who are 125 or whatever in there, but we thought, 105 was kind of a good one. And, so this one here, I mean, is where GolfWRX is probably the most excited to look at. These are kind of the ones that a lot of players are looking at. And the list, I'll go kind of in order because the in order is it is kind of from left to right, I believe. I'd have to double check on every single one of them. But the Titleist Tsi1, the TaylorMade Stealth Plus, Cobra Ltd Xls, the Ping G425 Lst, and the Callaway Rogue ST Max LS. So those are the top 5. We used to put them in order. I'd have to double check that they're in order there. They might be in order of most picks. But the TSI3 is, was one that was on so many lists. It really was. Like, it was, when you look at that 105 area, the TSI3 just, it was seemed like it was in everybody's top 5. It was hardly ever left out. And when you ask people about it, They really just raved about the TSI3. They just said for these higher club head speed players, these guys, one, it is TSI line is definitely the best drivers that Titleist has ever made. One of the fitters I talked to was like, it is better than 983K, it is better than 905R, any of those old classic legendary heads that people absolutely loved. TSI3 is better. And I agree with them 100%. And the TSI3 is just one of those things where it offers just a really good combination of really good looks when you set it down. So if you're a better player, you set this down, you're going to like the look of it. Great ball speed, which it really does have, that ATI titanium on the face. This thing has just been really good with ball speed. All from last year to now. I mean, it's a driver going on its 2nd year in its life cycle. And it's still hanging with anything brand new today. And then the amount of forgiveness that you actually get out of this head, which you normally wouldn't expect, from a head like this that is typically geared toward the better player and, has a little better look to it, good sound, good feel, all that. You wouldn't expect, that much, forgiveness out of it, but it is stable. It is pretty forgiving for what it is, and it has a ton of adjustability. And a lot of the fitters said, having a lot of adjustability for players at this level is really good because you can dial in, the club to how they're delivering the ball and their club path and angle of attack and all these things. You can really dial it in and get it fit to their swing. But this thing here was just raved about. I mean, everybody still, was raving about it, said it still definitely holds up with anything else out there today. That TSI is just still going strong. It's just a really good driver line, and especially the TS3 for the better player. I mean, the TSI4 though it was basically, it wasn't on the list ever. And one of the guys I talked to said he'd sold since they came out, he'd sold 5, and all but one, I think, was basically people calling in just saying, "Hey, I want a TSI4 with this shaft, these specs. Here you go." And he built it and sent it out to those people. But he said you rarely ever get fit into it. But TSI1, TSI3, 2, 1, all those, they're all still really doing well, and in their kind of respective playing fields, all doing very, very well. So TSI3 was, like I said, raved about by just about everybody that I talked to. I really like that driver. I think it is a very good. I think exactly what they're saying. It's a good mix of. It is much more forgiving than it looks, than you think it would be, and it has the ball speed and the low spin to hang with anything else out there right now. My head here, I really like. I wish it was a 10-degree head. I don't quite launch it as high as I need to. A lot of times I play it in kind of that C4 position, which ups it like 0.75 and keeps it a little flat. And that works decently well, but it does shut the face just a touch. So for me, a guy who misses it quite a bit left, it's not exactly my most love. But if I had that thing in a 10 degree or 10.5, whichever they make it in, it would be pretty huge. But TSI3 was like I said, rave for these high club head speeds, and they said even players who aren't necessarily scratch golfers or whatever, plus or scratch handicap players, if you're a little up there on the list, you're right at that kind of single to double digit transition, you can still play this head because of the low spin and the ball speed and the amount of forgiveness that's in it. A good range of players can still play it, and it was, like I said, raved about with all the fitters. The next one on the list is Stealth Plus, which the TaylorMade Stealth Plus, which is the one with the sliding weight track, and again, this is just brought out as low spin, but with really good ball speed, and really good stability on mishits as well. And one of the interesting things that heard from a lot of guys is, it hasn't been talked about is twist face been altered for this head, even though a lot of people think it is, just because of the size of the face now, how large the face is compared to Sim 2 and especially Sim. But they were saying like the low heel shot on this driver holds up exceptionally well. If you got a player who misses it, low heel, it adds, the ball still gets up in the air. It's still really low spin. It just controls spin really well and adds a bunch of ball speed to that miss. And for players who miss it there, they really can get away with some shots that with other drivers they may not see as good of a result with. But the carbon face seems to be a hot thing. Guys still want to hit it. The red face driver is still extremely popular when people come into fittings. But a lot of fitters say like it is performing really well, and the off-center ball speed is really good on this thing. And, people are really saying that the players who don't hit the center of the club face, which I mean, come on, most of us don't, are still seeing really, really good performance out of this thing, and the added stability from previous years, especially say the original Sim to this is a big difference. It definitely is. So the Sim Plus has been really good for, like I said, a lot of like higher spin players and people who like I said, miss it low heel for sure. But they say the same thing about the toe shots. Those toe shots, it still keeps the ball in the air, doesn't, moderates the spin really well and holds a lot of ball speed. And like I said, that carbon face has been kind of raved about from a lot of players or a lot of the fitters, working with their players. But another great driver that is kind of meant for that player. I mean, again, does this mean that if you swing at 110 miles an hour that the Stealth Plus is it? No, you may get into a Stealth. Who knows? But it's one of those things where that one was chosen the most for these kind of 106 and above club head speeds. And the next one on the list, you go the Cobra Ltd Xls. So the LS is the low spin one. I actually don't have the low spin head here. I think it's back at the office, to be honest with you. But the LS, the big thing with that was with so many fitters. That was one with the forward CG, the two movable weights that are way out front, and a lot of people just saying that that driver is exceptionally low spin, and being able to, but exceptionally low spin. It's definitely flatter launching. It's a great driver for somebody who's got just a ton of club head speed, but it also isn't crazy demanding. Like, it's not an SLDR. It's not something where when you start missing it outside of the center that you're absolutely dead. This thing here, same thing. The stability. Is it less forgiving than an LTDX? Of course. Is it less forgiving than LTDX Max? Yes, it is. But for the driver that it is, and being so low spin and being lower launching, and being built for that player who really does bring a lot of ball speed, it's extremely stable, and a lot of players are kind of getting away with shots that they typically probably wouldn't get away with a driver that was kind of built under the same construction, like super low spin. That's the whole main goal, make it look good, some aerodynamic properties to it, and that's it. Before, that driver would have been fairly difficult to hit, and now it is something where, again, being talked about with these fitters, that you don't necessarily have to be a scratch golfer to play it. You can be someone who is a little higher handicap, and this driver can still work for you, especially if you're someone who hits down on the ball a little bit, produces a lot of spin, and but you need some forgiveness. The LS is really good, and a couple fitters said, especially with across the whole Cobra line, but with this one here, where a player would miss it and be like, "Ah, man, I hit it off the toe, heel, high, low, whatever." And they would look at the screen, and the numbers would be very, very good for a miss hit. Yes, it wasn't dead center, but they would see some really good numbers, numbers that rivaled, that came close to when they were hitting the center. And the players and fitters, you're both being very surprised at how well the LS is handling those miss hits. The other interesting fact, too, one of the fitters was saying that having both movable weights pushed forward, but just two different gram weights. So like before, you'd ever add speed, so you could move the heavy weight up front, lightweight back. You could take some spin off and launch a little flatter. But then if you move that weight back, you could, then it was a little higher launching, a little more spin, but more forgiving. Now this one here, you basically get two different weights. So one's heavier, one's lighter, but they're both up front. So, being able to kind of just slightly tweak that bias for, some of these players, or even, move a little mass behind where they hit the ball. If there's somebody who kind of, their always contact is out on the toe a little bit, moving that heavy weight on the toe, they can see a little bit of increased ball speed and things like that. But they said having both those weights up forward is very interesting, and kind of, really kind of changing up the way they fit that club compared to the previous Cobra models that have been out. But a lot of good talk about the LS, which I was kind of surprised about. I thought most of the talk would be about the LTDX, and there was a good amount of that. But LS was getting a ton of chatter, which was pretty impressive. And the next one, the Ping G425 Lst. Again, like Titleist, going on the second year of the life cycle. Probably going to be replaced at the end of this season with something new, more than likely. If you kind of go by the way Ping does things, we'll expect to see something new in the fall, something like that. I have no idea. I mean, Ping and Titleist are both pretty tight-lipped, so no clue what is actually coming, or if anything is coming. But I would assume that end of summer, beginning of fall, right around there, we're going to see a new driver. But the 425 LST, again, a lot of people raved the adjustability was the big factor here. I mean, it was a little more compact head, flies a little lower, spins a little less. They're like, it's definitely not like, the lowest spinning head that you can offer someone. But if you have somebody who needs some lower spin, but still needs a bunch of stability, a bunch of forgiveness, the LST is tough to beat. They said they love the fact that, there is so much, the hosel adjustability where you can kind of go up and down, make it upright, make it flat. And then you have the three or the weights on the back where you can basically set something in fade, neutral, draw. And they said being able to kind of use those functions to dial that head in for a lot of players has been valuable. And that's where a lot of players where, it may not be the fastest in terms of ball speed anymore with everything new out. It may lag behind just a hair. It's still so good, and it's so straight, and it's so tight in terms of dispersion that, players looking for basically finding fairways, and they're not really concerned about hitting it 20 yards farther than the previous driver, they're going to really like the LST and all that it has to offer. And I do have to say the LST is a really good head. I was hitting it at the beginning of this year, really liked it, thought it was exactly that. It was a very stable driver for being, a little flatter flying and all that. But a lot of the fitters really like, the whole G425 line was pretty much raved about, but the LST, especially here, just, a lot of players, just, the higher club head speed guys who are generating more spin just naturally, it's a great fit. But it also allows that guy who's, maybe a 15 handicap who just is athletic build, swings it really hard, kind of has, problems controlling it. It still offers that guy, some forgiveness, as well as it offers that guy the adjustability to kind of dial that in, that if they're a slicer and they hit it right, they can dial that club in and get it more upright and move the weights around and get it to go a little straighter and not have to sacrifice a ton of spin or move somebody into a big, higher launching draw head. It's something there that fits a lot of players. And yeah, I don't have any ping heads to set up here, again, kind of at the office. So if you're watching this on YouTube, I've only got 2 driver heads out of the 5 so far, but I'll have the third one here or the 5th one here in a second. But the LST has been really good, and like I said, really, like I said, the whole line been for the most part raved about. But it's one of those that people really are still selling a bunch of and fitting a bunch of, even, like I said, second year in. And then the one that was actually kind of slightly interesting to me, but after talking to fitters it made more sense, was the Callaway Rogue ST Max LS. So a lot of guys said, the Max LS from last year, the Epic Max LS, was a huge seller for them. It was a great combination of being a little lower spin, but still having some forgiveness. And everybody's saying the Max LS is just even a better version of that. So they're saying more forgiveness, a little better, as what Callaway calls it, spin. I think they call it, what is it? It's like spin management. They call it something else. But basically, the way when you miss, when you hit it low heel, you're not generating just tons and tons of extra spin. You got a ball that just kind of flies up and dives to the right. You're controlling that spin. You're keeping that ball in the air. And again, like TaylorMade, the ball speed on mishits, everybody's saying this head is really, really good. You're seeing really good ball speed, especially when players, even players when they notice when they hit it, and they can kind of feel and hear that they hit it low, high, wherever they didn't hit it center, and they'll kind of be like, oh man, I didn't put a good swing on that, and they'll show those guys the numbers and say, well, look what you just did. This is a really good shot actually, and if this is a bad miss for you, it's right side, left side of the fairway, it's just in the rough, whatever. Like, you're definitely not hugely penalized for those shots. And again, the adjustability on this that a lot of people like. They love the fact that the shaft doesn't rotate when you adjust the cogs. So when you do adjust something, people can still play on a line or a rib grip with no problem. But people like I said, are really liking the low spin and forgiveness attributes here in this head. And it's a little more neutral to bias with maybe just a hair of draw to it. But most of the guys say it's really neutral, like I said, hair draw. But most of the fitters say that works really well. And, we got a lot of comments when we posted this list of, well, where's the Triple Diamond LS? Where's the Triple Diamond LS? And the big reason, well, all these fitters, because I asked, I said, we're seeing the Max LS on this list and these high speed, players, but where is, the Triple Diamond? And a lot of people said, hey, it's great having the Triple Diamond. We fit it into some players. Majority of golfers, it's a little too fade bias for, and it's a little harder to square up. So they're like, for the better player, and it's a little less forgiving, it's 450 cc's, and it's 10 cc's, but whatever. But it's a hair less forgiving. But most of the fitters said, hey, for the player in here, that comes in their shop, that is the higher swing speed, even the better player or whatever, majority of golfers miss it to the right. I mean, it's just the way it is. I know GolfWRX, our crowd, we all hit it left. I get that, but we are the minority of golfers out there. We're a very small section of golfers when it comes to, the type of golfer that our crew is or our audience is. And this one here, they basically said, I mean, that's the big thing. That, all things being equal, the Max LS is a little easier to square up. More guys miss it right. They fit more guys into this head. They said the triple diamond is awesome for that player who does hit the draw already or, wants to take that left side a little more out of play. The triple diamond works really well. It definitely reduces some more spin. But again, that's for a smaller portion of what they're seeing in terms of fitting. But they say that compact shape, everything like that, the much better players really enjoy that. But overall, in this club head speed, they're selling more Max LSs. So I know some people, like I said, made some comments out there that, hey, where's the triple diamond? That triple diamond should be in that one. That's the reason I got from multiple fitters. It wasn't just like one guy. Basically one of them said it's because most of the guys in that speed range, even the better players, they hit a little fade. That's what they fight. And the Max LS lowers the spin, easier to square up, adds a little draw, straightens them out, and they can kind of not worry about that right side near as much. So that's why you're seeing the Max LS in that one instead of the triple diamond, which makes total sense. I mean, like I said, I've you guys all know I ran the Callaway demo scene for a while, and I saw a lot of swings, and I'll tell you what, there were probably at least 10 to 15 slices to every guy who hooked it that you sat there on the range and watched. And even though majority or half the guys would come up and say they hit it left and they hooked it, when you went out and watched them swing, they never hit it left. So it's just one of those things. It makes a lot of sense, but Triple Diamond did get a lot of votes. It just didn't quite get as many as Max LS, and that's why. So, but that's kind of the 106 and above range, really. Like I said, I guess we don't have to go over every single head, even though I kind of have gone over every head in this category. But to the 95 to 105. That one there, we get into, the TaylorMade Stealth, which, a lot of people said there was kind of a mix of a toss-up there, really, too, in this category between Stealth Plus and Stealth and Stealth. Stealth Plus and Stealth. You would see a lot of both in this category, and basically the Stealth got a few more votes because it's a little more forgiving, and typically as you go lower in the clubhead speed range, you typically have golfers that need a little more forgiveness. But the Plus was in there a good amount, as well. And again, that adjustability, the sliding track, a lot of people like that. But the overall Stealth launched just a little bit higher, had just a little more stability to it. And for those players in that 95 to 105 range, a lot of fitters said, like, typically the guys come in there, they don't have enough, they don't launch it high enough. They think they do, they think they launch it too high. And then as soon as you start watching them hit and seeing the numbers that come up on, the launch monitor, they're definitely not hitting it near high enough to maximize their distance. So getting that in their hands, the Stealth compared to the Stealth Plus is a big difference. And a lot of the same things that were said with Stealth, the off-center ball speed, really, really good. The management of spin when you miss it, also really, really good. And then this one here, a driver that is basically in the next three categories is the G425 Max. And again, showing you that it doesn't matter at your club head speed what driver it is, as long as it works. And the G425 Max was, again, one of those drivers that just a ton of forgiveness. And it's super easy to hit. But one of the fitters, told me, like, if you have a better player, just because it says Max, well, if it's somebody who hits it left, that's fine. You know what? Go up in loft, turn it, open the face a little bit, take the loft down. So grab like, a 10.5 or a higher lofted head, turn the loft down. You can make the thing look open. You can make it look kind of square. Move the movable weight. You can move it to fade, all that stuff. They're like, you can adjust it to work with, a player who hits it left, even though it's a Max head. And they're like, if you can get the ball in the face, it's probably going straight. And it was just a really interesting thing to see that there, because, you probably would have thought it would have been, a mix between, say, LST or whatever, but no, the Max is in there, and most of the guys said, if you can get a ball on the face, it's probably going to go pretty straight, it's going to be in play, and it's just a driver that fits a ton of golfers, and in the swing speed range, that takes into account beginners and players who, have been playing this game their lifetime, and there's players in there who are probably scratch or plus handicaps, and they just don't swing it as fast, or don't swing it as fast anymore. And the G425 Max is again a driver that helps those players get that ball into the fairway. The other one too, the Rogue ST Max. So the Max LS, the slightly higher higher launching version. Again, this is going to be in kind of this one and the 94 and below. But again, a driver that has a little more spin, with that lower ball speeds that are coming off with those slower club head speeds. You're having a little bit more spin, helps keep the ball in the air a little bit more. And the overall, just the stability of that max head is really, really good. Now that one that does have a little more draw to it, and some of the bidders said, that's where you'll kind of go between the LS and the Max. But they said the spin difference between the two is, you're talking a couple hundred RPM. It's nothing crazy. So if you're a player who, needs some launch and needs some spin, but you do fight the hook and you hit it left, going to the LS won't necessarily kill you, because it's not, it's lower spinning, but it's not crazy lower spinning. And, there's a lot of versatility between Max and LS, and a lot of overlap between those. But the Max, they said, is getting to be a little bit like G425 Max, where it's just ultra stable. You can kind of hit it anywhere on the face. It's going to go pretty straight. And when you do miss it, the ball speeds are really good. The spin is still really solid in terms of it holds onto its spin really well. The Rogue ST Max has been, one that was on just a ton of lists between this and the slower club head speed, kind of all over the middle range here, the 105 or the 95 and 105, which is the TSI2 from Titleist. And a lot of hitters just said it. It's basically taking all the good things from TSI3 in terms of really good looks and sound and feel, all the great ball speed, just in a slightly higher launching package with a little more forgiveness, and something that's just really easy to hit. And again, something you'll see at TSI2s on tour. You'll see them in the bags of amateurs. You'll see them kind of everywhere. And again, a lot of overlap in terms of this list. But the TSI2, a lot of guys just raved about how stable it is and how easy it is to hit, while still having a really good-looking package for somebody who is, kind of picky about how the club looks, as well as, how it sounds and feels. So the TSI2 got a ton of votes, and again, just like the TSI3, going on its second year, it's going on the second year, still fitting a ton of them, still selling a lot of them, and, still seeing a lot of players fit into this club. And the TSI2 got a lot of really good reviews. One fitter actually kind of said, I wish it actually had the sliding track of the TSI3, because he said he thinks it would fit even kind of more golfers there, because you could dial in that bias a little better, where the TSI2 only has a fixed weight in the back that is mostly for swing weight purposes, but it does probably add a little bit to the forgiveness side. But, somebody said that should have the matching track like the TSI3 does, to be able to kind of help, again, with more bias, and you'd probably see more golfers in that head as well. And then one that, again, spans a lot, and, talking to a lot of these fitters, you'll see it kind of in any bag from somebody swinging slow to fast, is the Cobra Ltd X. And with Cobra, they've kind of switched up their drivers a little bit. The rad, say, if you're looking at last year, say the rad speed is now kind of the Ltd Xls. And then the XB and the draw model, the XD, kind of turned into the Ltd X Max. Those are kind of there. And then the Ltd X is kind of that in between. And it's a low spin head with a ton of forgiveness. And I think that's kind of the storyline across all the drivers right now this year. And that's a huge storyline, is how low spin and how good these things are at spin management on mishits, while still being really forgiving. We're adding so much stability into these heads, where it was before you chose between a really forgiving head and a low spin head, and that was your choice. Like you just had one, that was what you went with. And a lot of us try to counteract it and find like the low spin or the high spin forgiving head and stick an ultra low spin shaft in it and whatever. And now you don't have to do that. But with the LTDX, it is a driver that when I went to the Cobra media event, this is the driver head I got fit into. And it is really just a really great combination of being pretty low spin and very, very forgiving. I was told numerous times about how some of these fitters had customers in there that, hit a bad shot, say, oh man, I put a bad swing on that. And then all of a sudden turn around and they'd look at the numbers and they were actually really, really good. And I was that guy. When I went out and hit this, at the media event, I think I had at least a couple shots where I kind of one-handed follow through, said, oh man, that's garbage. Really hit that poorly, hit it off the toe, hit off the heel, whatever it was. And then the guy who was, fitting me at the time turned the iPad around and was like, it's a pretty darn good shot. like that ain't bad at all. Like if that's your miss, like you're going to be pretty happy with that. And it's one of those things that kind of story was echoed kind of throughout everything, that, for the player who needs a little more forgiveness than the LS, but still, brings some club head speed, still needs to kind of reduce a little bit of spin. The LTDX has been the kind of that perfect combo, that kind of, in-betweener where, you got a guy who needs forgiveness, and that's a little more important than spin, but still needs to lower spin because, whether it's a swing thing or a speed thing, the LTDX has been really, really good. And, like I said, I've noticed it myself, just really forgiving, really easy to hit, and a solid driver all around. I think, Cobra in general has done a really good job with a lot of their drivers, and we're going to see, I think, a lot of Cobra drivers in some bags by the end of the year. But, in this range, and again, there was a lot of picks of this driver in the higher club head speed as well. The LS just got more, but this was, was pretty close behind in terms of the higher club head speed. And again, just finding that even for better players, they like the shape, they like the sound feel, and the performance they get from it is just really good. That combination of low spin and and forgiveness is just tough to beat. So a driver that definitely is getting a whole lot of love out there, the whole line, but this one in particular. So then we move down to the best driver for up to 94, so 94 miles an hour and below. So players who typically need a little more height, need a little help getting the ball in the air, may need help turning it over, hitting a little draw, usually need some forgiveness or want some forgiveness there. So, drivers who fit that category. And the first one that we already talked about, which, again, I kind of told you was in basically every list from now on, was 425 Max. And again, just everybody said it is just the straightest driver, out there. It is so hard to beat in terms of forgiveness, stability, hitting the ball straight. They're like the head's super heavy, so it has a ton of stability. And all the adjustability, you can kind of dial it in to fit that player, whether they hit it right, they hit it left, or they hit it straight. You can dial that thing in there to really, really fit any of those players and get them into that head. So no shock that the 425 Max is there. But the funny thing is about the 425 Max is that it's played on tour, like Tony Finau played it for a while. So just because it says Max and it's in our list at the kind of up to 94 mile an hour list, doesn't mean that, you're somebody who brings the, swings at 120, that you wouldn't be playing the Max. Could definitely happen. Second driver on the list, the one that I was actually a little bit shocked of. There are two in this list that I was surprised to see. This is one of them, which is the Titleist Tsi1, because the Tsi1 came out last year. It was available, and I feel like it didn't get quite the amount of love that it's getting this year, but a lot of fitters said there's a lot more players who are coming in, and they're finding that really lightweight setups that launch high and typically have some draw to them are working really well. And they've got a lot of players coming in looking for that kind of setup. Or at least finding that kind of setup very successful. And they're fitting more and more people into that. So that the Tsi1 has done really, really well because those are the type of players who, are needing it. Excuse me. So the Tsi1, again, what they're saying is that, these players are coming in, they can set this driver up. It's built for lightweight. It's built to be a little long. The swing weights don't get crazy if you put a longer shaft in there for a player. The overall static weight is super light. And the Tsi1 just wants to go high. It just wants to go high. It's pretty darn forgiving. It definitely has some draw to it. So the player who may already hit a draw, may not like it as much, but for the most part, most of the players in this category, need a little help turning it over and, generating that club head speed. And the Tsi1 is definitely doing that. And again, not that I knew the Tsi1 existed. I knew it's kind of built that way, but now to hear that so many players are, so many fitters are definitely seeing more players fit into this head, it's pretty cool to see. So I did take it out and hit it once, and I tried to put like an extra stiff shaft in it and all that stuff. Didn't quite work out. The swing weight stays really light, and it definitely wants to go high and left. So it doesn't work out if you're trying to do that. I tried it. I didn't think it worked. But for the player looking for something lightweight, easy to swing, and easy to turn over, the Tsi1 is a really good option. And then one that again was in the last the last grouping, the 95 to 105 would be the Rogue ST Max again. I mean, just again something that's easy to get up in the air, controls spin really well, and has great ball speed on miss hits. It just fits really well into that category. And then the two at the end, the Cobra or the TaylorMade Stealth, excuse me, the TaylorMade Stealth back in here, which is interesting. It was in the one before it as well. But again, everybody's saying really easy to hit, easy to launch in the air. A few people mentioned kind of the HD version, the draw version in this category as well. Again, just because it's easier to turn over. But the Stealth basically won out in terms of votes. So the HD did have some votes there just because it was, again, easier to turn over, a little more of a shut face for that player looking to eliminate the right side. The HD is definitely an option, and it did get some votes. But the Stealth, again, easy to launch, good ball speed on miss hits, and a ton of stability. So not ultra lightweight like say the Tsi1, but for a little more traditional weight, the Stealth was really good. Excuse me, I don't know, just got the old dry throat all of a sudden. And then the last one, which was actually pretty interesting, again, because didn't expect it here. I mean, a driver that I know of, but didn't really expect to see it on the list, or didn't know that it was getting so much success. But a bunch of people on the list was the Xexio 12. So yeah, Xexio, the XXIO, the one that nobody knows how to pronounce. The only reason I do, I think, is because talking with people in the media, things like that. But the Xexio 12 and excuse me, the Xexio 12, which basically was kind of like the Tsi1. Everybody was basically saying, if you have a player who has a slow club head speed, needs help launching it, and, needs something lightweight, needs help turning it over, needs help hitting it to the left, taking that right side out of play, a lot of guys said the Xexio 12 is basically the one to beat in that category. There were a lot of fitters who said that for people who swing it very, very slow, this lightweight package, launching so high, being able to turn it over, like, it was Xexio 12 by a long shot, and there was a lot of stuff that wasn't even close to this. There were a lot of people, there were at least, 2 or 3 fitters that said it wasn't even close in this category for somebody who needs ultra lightweight, high launch, create ball speed, all that. Xexio 12 was beating everything, and it wasn't even close. So, if you're that player, I totally get it. Makes sense. It was just interesting because, like I said, like this head, I knew it was out. I mean, I never hit it just because I've hit the X, which is like the the higher club head speed version. But they just said like the static weight is super light. The overall swing weight is pretty light on these. I mean, this one here, which it still has a sticker because it's never been hit, is where is it? Well, this one's D4, so it is actually pretty average, but it's D4 at 45 and 3/4 inch length. It's got a 41 gram stiff flex shaft in it, so I think the regular flex is even lighter than that. But overall, just an ultra lightweight package. Play it long, but they said even at long, it's easy to turn over, easy to hit, and something that they're older players. They said, ladies and seniors, this thing is really hard to beat. And they said they know it's expensive, and when they show people, there is a little bit of sticker shock. But once they see the performance, it's really tough to beat. They said they've sold really, really well. So the Xexio 12, pretty impressed with what it's done, and how many votes, how many great things that fitters were saying about it, and how many people were really fitting into it, and how many players that they were really having a lot of success with it, which was pretty cool. Because like I said, I've known of Xexio quite a bit. I've hit quite a handful of the products, but I've never seen anybody really talk a whole lot about them until I talked to these fitters here. So they were really raving about it, and they were like, like I said, it's expensive and all that, but it really does work, and they were kind of shocked at how well it worked. So it was definitely an interesting one there, and one of the biggest surprises out of everything. And then, I know a lot of people say, what about Mizuno? Mizuno got a lot of good, a lot of votes and had a lot of people that said some good things about it. It didn't get as many votes as the ones here. I mean, that was kind of, the big thing. It's, we don't not put it on the list or anything like that. I mean, it was definitely in the survey. They could definitely choose it. A lot of good things said about STZ, STX. A lot of people, the biggest thing they said, Z and X is the forgiveness side of it, the stability. When you miss it on the toe, on the heel, the bulge doesn't travel offline a ton. It really stays on line. The things go really straight. They're just, it's Mizuno. Everybody knows Mizuno is kind of a forged iron, forged wedge kind of company, and people don't really think about them when they come to woods, so they don't get as much love. But when they do fittings, they say they do fit them into people. It's just not as many as these drivers, and they're just like I said, they're good. They're just there. And then the other one too that got a few votes, but not quite as many. The ZX7 from Strixon, got a handful of votes for being just an overall really good driver. The 5 got a few votes as well. But again, drivers that really perform well, but they just don't quite have the they just. I mean, for us, they just didn't quite get the votes. I mean, there's your answer, but. But drivers that had good things said about them. I mean, a lot of stuff like Xexio, the rebound frame, and the Strixon was really raved about. So the ball speeds on it really good. That's part of that same technology. Xexio, Strixon, Cleveland, all owned by the same company. But they said the rebound frame and these things works really well, and you're seeing good ball speed. And with Mizuno, you're seeing some good things as well. But they're just fitting more into these other drivers. So. That is, for the most part, our best driver list. If you want to check out more, read up on it. I mean, there's a whole... We put a lot of work into it, so if you want to read it and check it out, please do. Just go to GolfWRX.com. It's right on the front page. And it was fun to do. It was fun to put together. It was a lot of work, like I said, but it is definitely worth it. And, let me know your thoughts. I mean, if you want to hit me up on Instagram, @ClubJunkiePod, hit me up. Let me know what you think. I mean, again, I know it's not a perfect list. I know some people will have, some ideas of their own or some thoughts of why different ways are better or whatever. Hey, let us know. There's nothing wrong with that. We understand that there's no perfect system, so we're cool listening to some constructive criticism, to say the least. But yeah, that's for the most part that. Now we're gonna also have like a fitter's choice for for fairways, hybrids, irons. I think wedges as well. Putters we just don't get into because there's just no great way to really do putters, and it seems like like Cameron kind of wins anyway or whatever. But we'll see. We'll definitely do some more of these, so look for that. In terms of the rest of the bag will be there on our best list, and then we'll also be doing members' choice a little later in the summer, where we let the forum members kind of choose what's top for drivers, fairways, all that, which is pretty cool to see how that stacks up against fitters. So anyway, that's the best driver list. Like I said, please check it out if you can. Yeah, like I said, if you have any questions or whatever, hit me up @ClubJunkiePod on Instagram. It's the best way to do it. And hopefully you guys have a good rest of the week. Go try some drivers. Try some of the best drivers. See what you think fits you the best or what you find the best performance with. And, go out and do that. Do your own tinkering. But anyway, hopefully you guys have a great week. Had a great week. Hopefully you have a really good weekend. And we'll see you next week.